Hi everyone, welcome back. It's good to see you. Today we're going to talk about Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam. Downhill Jam. So, to preface, I really like the Tony Hawk series. It was a big part of my youth. I think one of the first computer games that I really invested in was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. And then, of course, later on in my life, we got the exciting Tony Hawk's Underground and Underground 2. You know, two games I spent a lot of time playing and enjoying. And along the way, there was also THPS 3 and 4. And then later, we'll kind of get this era of Activision in which the Tony Hawk's series was in an interesting place. There were already a ton of games made, and how many times can you iterate on the same gameplay design and function in skateboarding? And I guess this was their experiment to try to do so. I'm hard pressed, and there's not a lot of information on the background on what Activision was doing with this, but I'm hard pressed to believe that likely somebody saw SSX and its success and said, hey, we can probably do something like that with Tony Hawk's. And around this time, you know, they were coming out with American Wasteland and Project 8 and Proving Grounds. And I was a big brand loyalist, I'll be honest. I think one of the big mistakes I think about when it comes to buying games is I was going to purchase Proving Grounds or Skate, because Skate had just come out. And I really wanted to see what this franchise was still up to, and I bought Proving Ground. And I always think about that mistake. And between those two games, if you had to choose one when you were a kid, you know, which one would you have chosen? And I'd have gone back and made a different choice every time. But I have a little experience in history with Downhill Jam specifically, but for a different console, which was the Nintendo DS. So there's a version of Downhill Jam on Nintendo DS, and not to get into, you know, too many of the details, but it's a fantastic game. It is so fun to play, and the graphics and the performance of the game are fantastic on a handheld. And one of the things that makes it so exciting, honestly, just in itself, is that the game runs at a smooth 60 frames. And so when you're playing that on a little handheld on the go, but you're getting that performance of a racing, you know, high frame rate experience, it's really exciting. It genuinely is. And so I had thought, okay, I really loved that game. It was a lot of fun. And this Downhill Jam for PlayStation 2, it must just be that, right? Except graphically enhanced and a little more fleshed out, probably, because it's not a handheld game. So I'll pick it up. And so I kind of love a couple of things about the box art, just to point out. First, Tony is just decked out in audio, brand, footwear, etc. I don't even know if this brand exists anymore. But when I was in middle school, I thought that was a very cool brand, and I think a big part of it was Tony. And I also love kind of the back art. It's in this like 3D style. And look at Tony. I mean, he looks like a, I don't know, his skin doesn't have any texture. He looks like a mannequin or something. But nonetheless, I mean, very typical, complete PlayStation 2 kind of game, and we don't really get anything too fancy out of this manual. It's just basically here's some controls, and here's more controls, and here's some credits. So fun unto itself. But I thought it was interesting that Activision was trying something new at this time, and I wanted to be a part of that newness, you know, 15 years, 20 years later. So Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam. There's not much of a story here. I mean, you pick up the game and you choose one of, I think, 10 characters or so, or you create a character, and you just start competing in races. And there's a lot of different types of events. There can be specific race events or trick events, etc., or sometimes special events where you have to do a certain objective to finish the level. But essentially, each of these levels is graded on either, coming in first, second, third, and winning a gold, silver, bronze medal, which helps increase your reputation points, or kind of similarly for these special objectives, how fast you finish the objective. One of the fun ones being you'll ride down the hill and you're supposed to kick or punch just random pedestrians, and the more pedestrians you get, the higher your score goes, for you to get one of those qualifying medal finishes. But that's it. You just kind of go through the game and you do these things and you build your character up slowly over that. Every character has preset stats on their speed or their jump or their tricks, etc. And unlike other Tony Hawk games where you can build those up over time, instead you'll get new boards that will help improve the performance of XYZ stat. And so as you get further into the game, you'll unlock more boards, you'll become more powerful, more fast, you can do tricks quicker or spin quicker. And so that does kind of vary from the Tony Hawk experience, but doesn't vary from the SSX experience, where similarly every character has set stats, and then you choose a board for them which will increase stats or will, boost other things. And that's about it from that lens. One thing I thought was really interesting was some of the extra side content they added in, and a lot of it is like this strange like B-roll footage of Tony and some friends just like rolling down a hill on their skateboards and like spinning in a circle, and it looks kind of slow. Maybe it was cooler when they filmed it, it was faster when they filmed it, but it didn't capture the hype of Downhill Jam essentially. And I thought it was strange. I thought I was living in a strange world playing this game a little bit, which is why I'm hesitating here. Sound, you get it's the rock and metal, wild out kind of music of the mid 2000s when this game came out. And one of the things I was really surprised by, and I wanted to touch on, was graphically where this game is at. It looks pretty decent, but the performance is just out of this world, not so good. For a racing game, there were times when this game was kicking as low as like 20 frames. And for the speed and pace that Activision would have wanted out of Downhill Jam, I just found that to not be very fun to play. And it creates a situation where you don't have the visual references required to react quick enough to certain aspects of the gameplay, the speed and pace at which you're going. And I think when you compare it to something like Pro Skater 4, which had a more kind of clean aesthetic and look, I wasn't a big fan of that, I'll be honest. Yeah, and pair it with the control. The core of this game is you're going down a hill, and you can do tricks to build special boosts up, and you can cut corners and find secrets to get through the level quicker, to beat people quicker. But I found myself, even hours into the game, still in a place where I didn't feel too comfortable with the control aspects of the game. And what I mean by that is there's a really awkward turn delay when playing this. And this is, I tried on a couple of controllers and using the analog versus the D-pad, etc. But when you turn, there's an accelerator applied, so that when you hold the button at first you turn very slowly, and then you kind of move a little sharper, and if you turn for too long, your character will start to power slide. And I never felt like the controlling was tight enough one way or another in order to be good for a racing experience. I think this game actually finds that you would probably not be racing nearly as much as you are just kind of grinding and doing crazy tricks all the way to the bottom. And so maybe that's just my playstyle not working out. But again, I just found this game to be hard to control, kind of ugly to look at, and kind of awkward in some of its presentation aspects. And it's really disappointing for how much that I so enjoyed Downhill Jam on the Nintendo DS. But otherwise the gameplay is pretty fun. I think that the opponents put up a nice little challenge against you in most of these races, and the game challenges you to find secret passages and to really put your tricks to the limit. In this game, you'll be doing a lot of tricks. I think the way you build special and boost is, of course, doing tricks, and so anytime you're off a jump, I'm just pressing buttons, man. I'm going left, right, up, down, right, up, left, and just pressing square over and over again, just trying to slap out as many unique tricks as I can. I think for that reason that the trick spam is the most important thing in this game. It was never really fun to like know specifically what kind of tricks you're pulling off. And I'll tell you, I used to play SSX was one of my favorite PS2 franchises, and the PS3 version of SSX I still find to be fantastic to this day. I highly recommend it. And in especially SSX on the PlayStation 3, comparing a game that came out a few years after this one would have, I really felt in tune with every single move that I did, pulling off special moves and tricks. And I think a large part of that was the game having a good frame of both the performance, but also leaving you enough airtime or hang time or speed in which to really kind of be more thoughtful about what you're doing as you're playing it. And shame that I'm spending this review talking about a game that I find to be quite superior. Maybe it's just me, guys. I was just disappointed with this game in a lot of its aspects. It is fair from the pace of the game. You can probably finish it in like 8 hours. You can blow through levels because early on they take shorter segments of each race and make you go through those before you kind of hit these like very long races, etc. But the game's performance, some of those control aspects, and the way in which the gameplay works, it's just not for me. But I was impressed with the design of each of the levels. They're very intricate, and there's a lot of ways you can approach various segments and how you traverse them. And so from those lenses, I had a lot of fun. I don't think I'd return to Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam. When I look at this era of Tony Hawk games, there's just better ones out there. And so that's where I'd leave it. It's fair and fine. I think I had really high expectations, which is why I've probably built up a little disappointment towards it. But I don't know. Try it for yourself. What can I say? Did you play Downhill Jam on PS2? I'm curious to know. I don't think this game sold crazy, or if it did, I'm sure Activision would have made a sequel. But otherwise, yeah, let me know your opinion. And I appreciate you tuning in for this. If you like the video, and hope you subscribe and stick around for more. Till then, hope you all have a wonderful day, and look forward to speaking with you next time. Take care.